The Little League World Series had came to an end, and it's back to school for pretty much all the students. But before we end the month of August, and before the next episode of Macy's Parade Rank the Songs, this is something I've been wanted to do since, I would say, last year, but normally I would do this type of content around the beginning of the year. But I had this idea ever since I first started this, making awards predictions, and this was an inspiration from one specific channel that I usually follow for their coverage, and that is the upcoming 2023 movie award season. Now, we are still only like half of a year away till the next ceremony, but a lot of people would usually predict the Oscar nominations after the ceremony. And there are some, like me, that would not start doing the nomination predictions, like the channel that I follow, starting in August, because it kind of is the month, not also we're ending the summer, but we're going to be getting into some of the bigger movies that are coming up, as well as the Venice and Toronto International Film Festivals that are scheduled for this upcoming month. And we'll see which one wins the Golden Lion and which wins the People's Choice Awards to see who could potentially be our Best Picture frontrunner at the time being. So this is going to be my Oscar nomination predictions for the month of August, but it's only going to be the big 8 categories plus one additional one, which are adapted screenplay, original screenplay, supporting actress, supporting actor, lead actress, lead actor, director, and best picture, with the bonus being best animated feature at the end. Now, there are many movies that are in the massive competition for this year's award season. Now, there are 4 movies that I think some people are still predicting that do not know that the movies that they think are still coming out have been pushed back. Specifically from Searchlight Pictures, Poor Things, Yorgos Lanthimos' new movie, and the long-delayed Next Goal Wins, the newest one from Taika Waititi, as he confirmed it will be scheduled for next year from an interview he did on Thor: Love and Thunder. And there's also Netflix's Bayard Rustin biopic Rustin, which was directed by George C. Wolfe, who did Ma Rainey's Black Bottom starring Coleman Domingo, and the Obama's movie studio behind the film. And the most biggest one being Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, which would have been Apple's biggest contender after last year's Best Picture winner with Coda. But that has been pushed back, and it's potentially going to be premiering at the Cannes Film Festival next year. So those are the 4 movies that you will not be seeing in my predictions. There are going to be a couple of films that you might not be seeing in my predictions, specifically Elvis and Triangle of Sadness, and I'll explain that once we get to each of the individual categories. So with that being said, let us begin. So starting up with adapted screenplay, this could be another weak year in terms of contenders at the time being. So at the moment right now, I have Marta McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin, Rebecca Linquish for She Said, Valorian Geller for The Sun, Samuel D. Hunter for The Whale, and Sarah Polley for Women Talking. Now, a lot of predictors are still thinking The Banshees of Inisherin is original. And for those who don't know, this is going to be Marta McDonagh's newest film, his first one since 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Apparently, McDonagh originally wrote The Banshees of Inisherin as a play trilogy. And according to that information, those plays were never performed. So basically, we're in a Moonlight scenario where the Critics' Choice and the BAFTAs are most likely going to put in an original like they did with Moonlight, not the Writers Guild because McDonagh's not a member of that guild, but it will probably go adapted at the Oscars. Now, it has not been confirmed if McDonagh has said it's going to be going adapted, but it most likely is, but he has not talked about how this was originally a play trilogy, as we'll probably get more information when that movie premieres, I believe, at TIFF. So, I am still looking forward to it. I loved his last film. She Said, that is one of the 2 movies here that is basically about sexual abuse, of investigating sexual abuse cover-ups. And very ironically, Woman Talking is the other one as well. And here's the thing. If you take Spotlight, the Best Picture winner in 2015, and you split them up, where one is about the journalism and one's about the religion. Because she said it's about the journalistics behind who would investigate the sexual misconducts of Harvey Weinstein that will lead us into the hashtag #MeToo movement. And Woman Talking is based on a novel, and it's basically about women from the Mennonite church, of them coming together. I don't much know the synopsis, but it is regarding sexual abuse from a lot of the male religious leaders of that group. So, yeah, basically a massive split, one about journalism, one about religion. But Woman Talking is going to be the more stronger contender, as it is Sarah Polley. This is her first film since a documentary she has done, not Stories We Tell, but she did one after that. But she was nominated in this category for her movie Away From Her. So a lot of people do know her, and this is most likely going to be the big female-directed movie of the year. And I'll explain a little bit more about this, but I have Woman Talking, and like many others, as the adapted screenplay frontrunner. The Son, that is Florian Scheller's follow-up to The Father, which he and Christopher Hampton won this category, and Anthony Hopkins won Best Actor. You would think if Nomadland did win the Oscar, The Son would be the frontrunner. But since he already has won, many people would have him as like second place, to say the least. But this time he is solely writing into another one based on one of his plays. So that's a guaranteed giving in. A lot of people are really excited for that. And The Whale, that is Darren Aronofsky's newest film, his comeback since Mother, which I will explain. I was a bit skeptical of going with The Whale here. But it is getting some more buzz. A24 is behind it. Well, 2 A24 movies are going to be big this season. And for the second half of the year, this is definitely going to be about The Whale. As for other contenders, there were 2 I kind of considered. One was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and the other is Germany's adaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front, which just a few days ago, Germany had submitted that film for the international category. And it's like their adaptation of the original story, and many might know the original film from the early 1930s, which became the 3rd Best Picture winner, which surprisingly not a lot of people are talking about, but it's not technically a remake to that original motion picture like Nightmare Alley was last year. So I am kind of considering it, but these are the 5 I'm going to go with. For original screenplay, I have Damien Chazelle for Babylon, Alejandro González Iñárritu and Nicolas Jacobone for Bordeaux, or False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Sam Mendes for Empire of Light, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Schnur for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner for The Fabelmans. Now, this is the explanation why I do not have Triangle of Sadness in here. Yes, it did win the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, but a lot of the times, a movie winning the Palme d'Or at Cannes doesn't usually be a big, massive Oscar contender. Because, yeah, Parasite was, but last year with Titan, that was never going to happen. Because that's a messed up horror movie that Academy members would say. And also that polarizing reaction at the time being. And I want to put it in here, but it's like more of a wait and see when more reactions comes out when it comes for its second screening at TIFF and when it officially comes out in October. So the reception might change, because a lot of the times festival reactions would get a not so good reaction when it first premieres, but once the public sees it, that's when the reception could come better. I think Another Round was something I think it was like 2 years ago, where I think the reception wasn't great at festivals, if I'm correct, but it got better once the general audience and critics have seen the film. So I am just going safe here, just putting the obvious 5 here. Babylon, one of my most anticipated films, and Chazelle's second film, centered around Hollywood. He made Whiplash and La La Land, 2 of the best films of the last decade. Bordeaux, this is Netflix's biggest contender, our international feature winner at the time being. Iñárritu's first film since The Revenant. One of his co-writers from Birdman's involved with this. Empire of Light is Sam Mendes' newest film. And then you got Everything Everywhere All at Once, which that's basically obvious. I don't think that people don't need to say, oh, it's not going to happen because it's the beginning of the year. It is going to happen, because The Grand Budapest Hotel, Mad Max Fury Road, Get Out, and Black Panther, with all those 4 films from the last decade getting early releases and getting big top awards, everyone knows Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to happen, because it was like one of the most talked about movies of the beginning half, and if not, what many people consider the best movie of the year so far, even still without many of the other films coming out yet, but we'll have to wait and see. But this is, at the moment, I have both the Daniels out front for the original screenplay, and The Fabelmans is basically Steven Spielberg's Belfast, which some people do have out front because Belfast just won this, and this could be Spielberg's first win for writing, and he and Tony Kushner are writing this movie, not collaborating, I meant. And it's very ironic, that is going to be Spielberg's first ever film to premiere at TIFF, so that's going to be a unique thing to see. If it wins the People's Choice Award, then you might have to put it as your original screenplay frontrunner, I would say. So, I'm going safe here. Other than Triangle of Sadness, I can't really think of any other contenders here that I can think of for this category. But I am going safe here with just these 5 at the time being, and once more reactions to Triangle of Sadness, or there could be other films that are going to be more acclaimed that we might see getting in contention. But at the time being, I'm just going to go safe with these 5. Acting time! Starting with the supporting categories. For supporting actress, I got Jessie Buckley in Women Talking, Stephanie Hoos in Everything Everywhere All at Once, Vanessa Kirby in The Sun, Griselda Silencia in Bordeaux, or False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, and yes, I will be saying the full title throughout this, because you know the Academy is going to do that, and Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans. This is going to be like an Afterglow nomination for Buckley. She was nominated last year for The Lost Daughter, and I actually have her as my front runner, and you will see why. Stephanie Hoos, not a lot of high considerations like out of the main acting contenders for Everything Everywhere All at Once, but she is still being discussed. Everyone is definitely going to think Vanessa Kirby is going to be more the stronger role, probably for The Sun, unless Laura Dern does it. Well, obviously, this would also be like an Afterglow nomination, because Kirby was nominated for Pieces of a Woman, and I was one of the fewest people that thought she was going to win the Oscar just for the joke of it, but that did not happen. So, I know Dern would be the obvious go-to choice, but since she won, I think many people are leaning towards Vanessa Kirby. Griselda Silencia. Now, that and our lead actor contender that I actually will have when we get to him are kind of a little bit unknown. But the thing is, with the exception of his debut feature, Amores Perros, all of Inarritu's movies had gotten acting nominations. 21 Grams, Babel, Beautiful with Javier Bardem, Birdman, and The Revenant, which of course DiCaprio wins. So, if there is one thing Inarritu knows best, acting nominations. And many people think because, as Bordeaux has been described as Inarritu's Roma, that means both it would get 2 acting nominations, with the main star and who would be the supporting star, which is this, I think, would be Griselda Silencia. There was a moment I thought she could be going leading, but I think it could be more of the male protagonist, so... But it's just going to be more of a way to see when it premieres at Venice. So I have her in here. Michelle Williams, and many people do have her out front as the potential career win for her. But because of me putting Buckley out front, and I'll explain why I would do that, so Michelle Williams would be my second place contender at the time being. But I have Buckley out front. A couple of other contenders that some people are predicting, but I'm not really sure which ones are the strong ones here, because some people thought Frances McDormand, but that's going to be a movie, that's going to be an ensemble movie where everyone's going supporting, and McDormand basically will probably get a nomination for Women Talking, but not for this category, and not for actress, as you will see later on. For supporting actor, I have Brendan Gleeson in The Banshees of Inisherin, Jude Hirsch in The Fabelmans, Ki Hugh Kwan in Everything Everywhere All at Once, Zen McGrath in The Sun, and Ben Whishaw in Women Talking. Gleason, that could be... I'll explain a little bit more about The Banshees of Inisherin, where I'm going with this, but that could be something working with Martin McDonagh, because McDonagh did, with his last 2 film, getting 3 acting nominations, 2 of which for Sam Rockwell and Frances McDormand. Hugh Kwan I do have out in front, like many others do. Zen McGrath, a lot of people are actually really going with him. You would think, oh, because he's so young, but then again, he would be in the same age as Lucas Hedges and Timothée Chalamet when they got nominated. So, although he's kind of unknown, but I think this would be a breakout role for him. Now, originally, I did had Michael Ward in here for Empire of Light. But even though I don't see him much in the trailer, but if the synopsis is supposed to be a romantic movie, there might be a possibility he could go leading. Unless if Searchlight does put him supporting, that could be good for him. So at the time being, with not me having Michael Ward in here, I have Ben Whishaw in here for Women Talking. There is also the potential of a double supporting acting nomination for The Fabelmans with Seth Rogen, Paul Dano, or even Jude Hirsch, which I have. Because when it comes to a lot of coming-of-age movies, as somebody did explain, it's usually the uncle or the grandparent that usually gets in the supporting actor category, with the exception of Ethan Hawke in Boyhood. And some people think because with Ciarán Hinds, but last year for Belfast, getting in over Jamie Dornan for Belfast, it makes sense Jude Hirsch would be the likely one over Paul Dano and Seth Rogen. So Ke Huy Quan is my frontrunner, but there are many contenders that could come in here out of nowhere. Before I begin with my predictions for Best Actress, let me tell you there is one contender in here that I do not have, and that is, and I'll explain here in just a second because you'll see why. So for actress, I have Naomi Ackie in I Want to Dance with Somebody, Cate Blanchett in Tar, Olivia Colman in Empire of Light, Daniela Deadwyler in Till, and Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere All at Once. So yep, I do not have Margot Robbie in here for Babylon, and that is because with not having a full synopsis of what the movie is about, or we don't have a trailer, since Babylon is not going to be at TIFF or Venice. I don't know about New York, or any other festivals, because it is scheduled for a December release. So, with me not knowing any scenarios of what the movie is about, I don't have her in here. And that's why I also don't have Brad Pitt for supporting actor. And I'm questioning if she is leading or not, because it is definitely going to be a big, massive question once we get our first look at what the plot is about. If it's not, then she's going supporting. So what I have her in her place is, at the time being, because Michelle Yeoh, that's guaranteed. But then we have the other four that none of us have seen, although there have been some early screenings with one of them, and that's Till. And although we had, this is kind of interesting that we had the ABC miniseries that came out at the beginning of the year. And there was also the Oscar-nominated short My Nephew Emmett. And although that could be a movie where it might not get a great reception, the performance of Daniela Deadwyler might win it all. And so, although it's odd it's not premiering at any festivals, I have her out front just for the subject matter. Naomi Ackie with I Want to Dance with Somebody, that could be a generic Whitney Houston biopic. You have Cassie Lemons as the director who did Harriet, which Cynthia Erivo got in this category, but it is written by Anthony McCartan, who wrote the screenplays for The Theory of Everything, Darkest Hour, Bohemian Rhapsody, and The Two Popes. All four of those films got at least acting nominations. Theory of Everything, Eddie Redmayne won, Felicity Jones was nominated. Darkest Hour, Gary Oldman won. Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody, Rami Malek won. And The Two Popes, Jonathan Pryce and Anthony Hopkins were nominated. So it makes sense to go with her because of McCartan behind the writing stage. Although it might not be a very great movie, it could be another generic biopic like last year with The Eyes of Tammy Faye and Being the Ricardos, but the performance could be the thing. And I'm surprised not a lot of people are talking about Ashton Sanders for supporting actor who's playing Bobby Brown. You might know him as the teenage Chiron in the second chapter of Moonlight. I'm surprised he's not being discussed. Cate Blanchett, I know it's kind of interesting because she had now broken the record of Olivia de Havilland for the most appearances in a Best Picture nominated movie, as we saw with Don't Look Up in Nightmare Alley. But the thing is, why many people are going with her is because of Todd Field. And this is his comeback to the director's chair since Little Children back in 2006. Yes, 2006. Jeez. Because he also did In the Bedroom in 2001, which was nominated for Best Picture. And the one thing of his last two movies he has done, acting nominations. In the Bedroom, Tom Wilkinson, Sissy Spacek, and Marissa Tomei were in. And with Little Children, Kate Winslet and Jackie Earle Haley got in. And although there's not a lot of recognizable names for Tar, Blanchett is the most notable one, and she is the star of the film. So it makes sense to go with her, not because of who she is, but because it's Todd Field behind the director's chair. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think many people have assuming about this. Not also I think we have our new, but we have our official British Meryl Streep. Olivia Colman is here again. My gosh, that would be the third year in a row she would be nominated, and fourth in less than 5 years, because she won for The Favorite, even though that was a supporting performance. The Father, one of the good things about that movie, other than the editing, production design, and the directing, since I wasn't a really huge fan of that movie. And then The Lost Daughter, which, yeah, Jessie Buckley was the only good thing about that movie. But this is, now, it's not because of her specifically, it's because it's Sam Mendes behind the director's chair, which is why many people are bringing her up if Empire of Light is going to do well. Working with Searchlight again, of course, she won that for The Favorite, which was another Searchlight film, so it makes sense to go with these five without knowing what the synopsis of Babylon is. I don't have Margot Robbie in here at the time being. So, at the time being, I have Daniela Del Weiler out front until we get more confirmation of what the synopsis of Babylon is going to be. In the continuation of why I'm not going big with Triangle of Sadness, you might see who I don't have in here for Best Actor. I have Colin Farrell in The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser in The Whale, Daniel Gimescaccio in Bordeaux or False Chronicle of a Handful of Troops, Hugh Jackman in The Sun, and Jim Parsons in, spoiler alert, The Hero Dies. So, I don't have Austin Butler in here for Elvis. Now, I do think Elvis would still be an Oscar-nominated movie. Like, it's a Baz Luhrmann film for, like, production design and costume design. Makeup and hairstyling was guaranteed. Possibly sound. But the real reason is, I don't know if Elvis is giving me Rocket Man vibes. The difference is, of course, Elvis was released in June and Rocket Man was back in the month of May. And Elvis was at the Cannes Film Festival. And I think Rocket Man was as well. But it just, like, Austin Butler is giving me that Taron Egerton vibes at the time being. Although it's not one of the best reviewed movies of the year, like at the first half, but many people do praise his performance the best. But because of giving me that Taron Egerton vibes, I don't have Austin Butler here at the time being. Colin Farrell, once again, working with Marty McDonagh, so that's guaranteed right there. And this is also where I'm going to be ending the Banshees of Inisherin for my predictions. And because many people are assuming, and including myself, and somebody really brought this up, that the Banshees of Inisherin is going to be like in the same levels of Can You Ever Forgive Me, The Two Popes, and The Lost Daughter, where it just gets 2 acting nominations and adapted screenplay in this case, and they would not make it in the picture lineup. And another thing is because Empire of Light is going to be Searchlight's biggest campaign film of the year, more so than Inisherin. However, if Empire of Light's reactions are not that great, they can do at Banshees of Inisherin, and that could be good news for that film. Brendan Fraser, this is a massive comeback for him. Many people do have him as either a frontrunner or top 2. Definitely, this is going to be a big, massive comeback for him. He is playing a guy that is overweighted. That definitely many people think a potential makeup and hairstyling frontrunner, but it depends on how much weight he decided to gain for this role. Daniel Gimescaccio, as we mentioned, with Inarritu getting acting nominations in, and him being unknown, that would mainly be like the Yalitza Aparicio spot. Hugh Jackman, many people, including myself, have him as the frontrunner. He is playing a role in a Valerian Geller picture, so that's given it the thing because Anthony Hopkins won this, and this could be the thing that could give him his EGOT. And it's ironic that he's only been nominated for Les Miserables, and a very great performance, by the way. And then you got Jim Parsons here. Now, there are 3 reasons. One, it's kind of like acting the scenarios. How long since the end of The Big Bang Theory can Jim Parsons get his first Oscar nomination? Because many people asked that question when it came to Bryan Cranston for Trumbo, and it only took him like 2 years or so. And I thought that was going to happen last year with Peter Dinklage with Cyrano. I didn't predict him for the final time, but it's like how long since the end of Game of Thrones he would get his first Oscar nomination. That did not happen because that movie was a very late release. Spoiler alert, The Hero Dies. That is has a December release. Parsons is a producer, but the real reason is that Michael Showalter is the director. He did The Big Sick, which got in for original screenplay, and he did The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which won both Oscars last year for makeup and hairstyling and Best Actress for Jessica Chastain. So even if that movie does not do well, getting an acting nomination in behind Showalter could be a possibility. If Chastain managed to win this, I don't have him out front, but Parson could get like his first nomination here. So it also depends on the reaction to that movie, if it's going to be bad or something like that. But Showalter managed to get an acting win in, so because Chastain was also producer of Tammy Faye. So Parsons, who had probably a passion for this, and with Showalter behind the director's chair, since Parsons also producer, could do something here. So we'll have to wait and see how that movie goes. Now we're coming into one of the biggest ones, Best Director. I've got Damien Chazelle for Babylon, Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu for Bordeaux, or False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Schnurr for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick, and Sarah Polley for Women Talking. Now, some people think, oh, Kosinski, that's not going to happen, but it is not out of the realm possibility. It's just that I just have him in as the 5th spot, because originally I had Steven Spielberg in here for The Fabelmans, but if I did put him in, I would be predicting the Directors Guild lineup, which some people are reasoning why they're going with Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. But because I don't know much about that synopsis, I'm going to wait to see how more of that reaction is going to come. Now, you would think Sarah Polley would be the one to go here, because that could be a movie where the directing might not stand out. But if she does get snubbed, the news media is going to bitch and complain about it. So, not against on that, but that's going to happen if she doesn't get in. So, it's basically, she has to get in, otherwise people are going to be pissed. The Daniels are most likely guaranteed at this point. They would be the first directing duo since the Coen brothers to get in for True Grit. So that's going to be unique. Bordeaux is our big international contender, and at the time being, although it doesn't seem obvious, but I have Iñárritu out front. He is going to be directing that massive movie. It's another movie that's kind of a little bit about documentary filmmaking. Emmanuel Lubinski is the cinematographer behind this, so that's probably our cinematographer frontrunner. If it is a one-take movie, Iñárritu's got that again. So, and then for Chazelle, if you're a big Best Picture contender, if your movie's centered around Hollywood, there are 2 categories you automatically get nominated: Production Design and Best Director. So, since Chazelle's making a movie about centering around Hollywood, that's obvious. So yeah, with me not having Spielberg, he just got in for West Side Story, which we all know he took Denis Villeneuve's spot for Dune. So that's kind of odd. So Kosinski is not on the realm of possibility, although some people said, well, he directed Spiderhead earlier this year. But keep in mind, Top Gun Maverick was supposed to be released in December of 2020, one of the fewest movies that got pushed back into the pandemic. So it's interesting you have 2 of the movies from the beginning of the year getting in Best Director, and it's not out of the realm possibility. Some people are bringing up Florian Zeller for The Sun, Sam Mendes for Empire of Light. I almost thought of the director for All Quiet on the Western Front here, since it is not out of the realm to get 2 non-English language movies in here, as we saw with Cold War and Roma. And some people think, oh, Triangle of Sadness is doing that. But the thing is, with Triangle of Sadness, that's not going to be in contention for the international category, since English is the main language for that movie. So Sweden cannot submit that movie. So that's why you will not see it in the international category, which might be a good sign for it to get in screenplay, director, and potentially picture. Some people bring Woody Harrelson for supporting actor, which some people said who saw the movie said he's not in it that much. So these are the 5 I'm going with at the time being. And Darren Aronofsky for The Whale's another one. So these are the 5 I am going with Iñárritu out front. And now we get into the big one, Best Picture. Now, there is going to be one movie here on my Best Picture lineup. You're going to be asking, why do I have it in that picture lineup? And I'll explain that probably the last thing about it. Or no, like, when I go order of these picture nominees. So you'll see which one it is, and you guarantee which one's the 10th spot for me. For Best Picture, I have Babylon, Bordeaux, or A False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Empire of Light, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, The Sun, Top Gun Maverick, The Whale, and Women Talking. We already explained a lot about Babylon and Bordeaux. Empire of Light seems Searchlight's biggest campaign over Banshees of Inisherin. You also got Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross behind the score, and Roger Deakins as the cinematographer. And I would not be surprised also if Bordeaux would overperform, because that is definitely Netflix's biggest contender. And if Netflix has been getting a lot of double-digit nominations in their films recently, that could be a film with this, but it's going to be questioning in some of the technical categories like score or production design. Costume design, it's not likely. So and if it is a one-take movie, it can't get in for editing. So, but if it's not, then it is going to get in. So it's going to be a question. Everything Everywhere All at Once, that needs no explanation. Fabelmans, Spielberg. It's very ironic because my final predictions last year, I bet against West Side Story for Best Picture because of its underperformance at the Guilds and missing Best Picture at the BAFTAs, and I'm never going to bet against a Spielberg movie in contention for Best Picture again. So, it's just, there's always that one movie that always underperforms at the Guilds and the BAFTAs and overperforms on Oscar nominations day. We saw this, I thought of this with The Irishman, I thought of this with Mank, and last year with West Side Story. I guarantee I'm not going to do that with Bordeaux, so I don't know which one's going to be. Maybe Babylon I'm underperforming, but it depends on the reactions of that. The Sun, that's obvious. Top Gun Maverick seems more and more likely. Out of the three big sequels, between that, Avatar The Way of Water, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Top Gun Maverick seems like the most likely one. And although it might miss because Paramount is guaranteed to go to more campaign towards Babylon for the season, but if it is what I think it would be, because for me, I would say it would be the front runner for sound and film editing. The Whale, I had a bit of speculations about this one. Now, yes, two A24 films, but the thing is, with how much the industry respects Aronofsky after he did Mother, because Mother was a very polarizing movie, and a lot of people absolutely hated that movie. Some people consider it one of the worst films of the decade of his anti-abortion beliefs, with the bad graphic imagery. So that's definitely going to be a massive question if this movie is going to be like a hatred towards fat people or something like that, fat shaming or obesity. Hopefully it doesn't do that. It depends on what the novel is about, unless if you had read the novel, it might be something different. So this could get more respect for him. Now, for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, why do I have it in here? Because you would think, oh, it's animated, it can't get in. But there are three things, actually. One, Guillermo del Toro is behind the director's chair. And if they did nominate a Nightmare Alley last year, they have to do it. Second, we've been seeing at least two Netflix movies being nominated for Best Picture. Rustin would have been the second choice, but since that has been pushed back, some people think White Noise, which is Noah Baumbach's newest film. But since I heard that might be considered a horror movie, a psychological horror, that might not be something the Academy might not go with. And then Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, which I forgot to mention in the adapted screenplay category, not likely at the time. So if there is going to be a second Netflix film, it's got to be Del Toro's Pinocchio. And it could make sense to get it for picture just for that animated feature, visual effects, and original score. Adapted screenplay is very questioning. And not to mention, another reason why some people are not going to be going with it is because there could be some massive confusion with Disney's live-action remake of Pinocchio directed by Robert Zemeckis. Which, you probably know, when they say Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, people understand which Pinocchio they're talking about. So, it is definitely a realm of possibility. You got a prominent director who had a Best Picture winning film. I'm surprised not a lot of people are predicting this. And here's my third reason. Now, I am not one of those toxic members of the cartoon community. But the real reason why I have it in here is because of the controversy that occurred last year's ceremony. Where the Academy, specifically and ABC, specifically thinks animation is just for kids and not and just a typical genre like they do every single damn year. I mean, especially when they decided, because that was a prominent example when they decided to bring in 3 of the live action Disney princesses to do it, which is not their fault, but whoever wrote that was just like, I knew that they were going to say that. And then that's when the cartoon community went uproar about it, and they were like in the levels of Will Smith, where they were like, obviously they would not, of course, slap any of the girls. They would have to slap the writers, whoever did that. And Phil Lord and Christopher Miller got really involved with this, and they think animation really needs to be more respect in the film industry, as many people would still say animation is a genre, when all those who say it's a genre think that superheroes is a media of movies, which that is false. That is just an action genre. So, Del Toro's Pinocchio could be the thing. Now, I thought it was going to be Lightyear, but that reaction did not do well for critics, so that's not going to happen. So Del Toro's Pinocchio would be the go-to choice. You have Netflix, of course. They usually have 2 movies in the picture lineups, and it is Guillermo del Toro. So many people have discussed that there should be some live-action directors that need to specifically answer the question, is animation cinema? Like Del Toro would say it, Steven Spielberg would say it, Gore Verbinski, who did the Pirates of the Caribbean films, would say it, since he did Rango. Carlos Lopez Estrada would say it, Wes Anderson. But there would be people like, you have to ask, like Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, Jane Campion, Alejandro González Iñárritu, Alfonso Cuarón, Damien Chazelle, Darren Aronofsky, Sarah Polley, Chloe Zhao, David Fincher. Like, they would answer the questions here. And it's interesting, we're not mentioning a lot of David Fincher's other film, The Killer, which I don't even know if that's still coming out this year or not. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of a thriller, like Gone Girl, which many people are not bringing that up. So that's the reason, like, this could be maybe one of the animated films that could get the respect from the film industry if they want to show that animation cinema. I guarantee it will not happen, but I'm one of the fewest people that think the Academy needs to. I'm not desperately wanting to see it, but there needs to be a year in my life that I want to see an animated film win Best Picture. It's just like, they need to be more respected than just being a kid's genre, because animation is a media. That's what it is of cinema. Non-English language films are cinema. Documentaries are cinema. Animation is in the levels of that. And it's still getting disrespected, and they're thinking, oh, their kids are gonna, it's just a kid's thing. And if it happens again, you know what's gonna happen. And animation just needs more respect, and more in contentions in other categories. And we still have yet to see an animated film for director. And of course, voice acting performances are ineligible here. So, although it might not happen, but I'm just putting it in here as the 10th spot. And finally, let's talk about Women Talking, which out of all the 10 films on this list, I have it as my Best Picture frontrunner. This is why I have it frontrunner for adapted screenplay and Jessie Buckley. And that is because somebody did point it out that it is the smaller movie compared to all the others. It's technically The Sun as well, but like when it comes to like, in recent years, the smaller film wins Best Picture. We saw this with many of the films, instead of like the big name ones that are named by big prominent directors. And also with the rising respect of the rising wins of female directed movies winning like director, Best Picture, or even a screenplay, that's what I feel like this is. Not to mention the producers behind Women Talking: Brad Pitt, Dee Gardner, Germany Kleiner, and Frances McDormand. The first 3 are not also producers for this film, but they're also producers for She Said. And which one of the 2 is most likely? Women Talking. Not to mention McDormand is an additional producer. Dee Gardner and Germany Kleiner are the producers duos that won for 12 Years a Slave and Moonlight, and they were the producers duos as well for Selma, The Big Short, and Vice. And Edie Gardner, I believe, was also a producer of The Tree of Life. So this producing duo kind of knows when to produce a big Best Picture contender or even a Best Picture winning movie. And with the rise of female directed movies winning these awards, I feel like it makes sense, not much in the director category, because Women Talking could be a movie where the directing might not stand out, but 3 years in a row, a woman-directed film winning Best Picture would be the discussion. And it is the only female-directed movie I have on my list, because she said it is kind of a questionable one at the time being, because with both of those movies having similar subjects, and she said has a more recognizable director. And with me having it a screenplay win and an acting win, it kind of makes sense. Now, technically, that's also the similar thing with Everything Everywhere All at Once, where I have it as the original screenplay frontrunner and the supporting actor category. So that is definitely probably my second place. So if I would say would be the top two, at the time being, Everything Everywhere All at Once and Woman Talking. And I could see some people putting Woman Talking on front if it wins like People's Choice Awards, or if it gets into the first or second runner-up at TIFF. I think it's going to be in the top three regardless. So that's the reason why Woman Talking is my Best Picture frontrunner. And that wraps up my predictions in the Big 8 categories. But before we go, here's my predictions for Best Animated Feature as a bonus. I have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, My Father's Dragon, which is the newest one from Cartoon Saloon, which I'm really excited for. Puss in Boots' The Last Wish, since the first one got in. Strange World, which could be the Disney frontrunner when it comes out. And the current animated feature frontrunner for Disney, and for the category, since it's the only one that has been released, Turning Red. Since we know for a fact Lightyear would not get in. Although I did watch it, and it was pretty good, but it is the weakest of the Toy Story movies. But I would watch it over like The Good Dinosaur, Brave, and the Cars sequels, and maybe even the first one as well. So that is kind of it for my predictions for the Big 8 categories, and specifically my Oscar predictions for the month of August. Let me know in the comments what you're predicting. If you want to follow me along with this awards coverage, you can hit that subscribe button, and I will see you at the end of this next month when we do an update on my Big 8 predictions for the month of September, and see if Woman Talking is still going to be my Best Picture frontrunner.